I think it was a very unusual cooperation, hopefully a precedent for further cooperation in the organization of this conference. And I want to thank our partners, the Einstein Papers Project and Professor Diana Buchwald, its director, and the editor of the Einstein Papers, and the Max Planck Institute for the History of Science in Berlin and its director, Professor Jürgen Wren, and of course their collaborators, people who work with them. It was not only financial support, but also a lot of advice and substantial contribution to the organization of this conference, so thank you. And also our other sponsors, the Hebrew University of Jerusalem, and in particular the Einstein Center for the History and Philosophy of Science and its director, Professor Orly Schenker, the Israeli Academy for Science and Humanities, and of course the Einstein Archive, Ronnie Gross, Barbara Chaya Becker, have all helped us very much in preparing material for this conference. I'd also like to thank Shulamit Laron. I don't see her here. Somehow she always disappears when one wants to thank her. You know that without Shulamit, conferences in this place, and we've had a long series of conferences, would never have happened. Her contribution to this conference was also essential. So thanks to Shulamit, thanks to Eyal Ofron who helped her, thanks to Guy Chetzroni and Aviv Shirtz from the Einstein Center who helped with website and changes in the program. And thank you all for being here. Now, Professor Issachar Una.
Well, it is my honor and great pleasure to open the first session of this conference. Space-time theories, historical and philosophical context. Celebrating the first 100 years of Einstein's general theory of relativity. This session is devoted to the Einstein Studies. As a member of the Einstein Papers project for the past 14 years, it is a special pleasure to introduce Peter Dougherty, our dear director of Princeton University Press for the past 10 years. Peter joined UP, Princeton University Press, 23 years ago and contributed a lot to its success. Good books publishing is his expertise for the past 33 years. And he will talk about reflections on the Einstein Papers.
Yeah, I don't have a presentation, but I prefer to stand, if I may. Good morning, everyone. The title of the conference is Space-Time Theories, Historical and Philosophical Context. You'll get some history, you'll get a little bit of philosophy from me, but you're going to have to wait for theory. That will come later. I'm a book publisher. I would like to thank Yemima Ben-Benaken, Professor Jürgen Wren, Diana Buchwald, and Hanoch Gutfreund for organizing the conference. And Hanoch tells me that there is a Jewish blessing that one summons when doing something for the first time. This is my first visit to Jerusalem, and so in addition to these distinguished academics, I would like to thank God for keeping me alive long enough to be here and to make this presentation. And I'd also like to thank the folks at the Van Leer Institute for their kind invitation to participate in this timely and historic conference. I've been asked to reflect on the Einstein Papers project, and I will do so, but I'd also like to expand a bit more generally on Albert Einstein's legacy at Princeton University Press and what his influence has meant to the press and for our future. Reflections by their very nature are personal, and so mine will be, but in offering my reflections, I'd like to acknowledge the enormous contribution of my predecessors The late Herbert S. Bailey, who in the 1970s and 80s brought the Einstein papers to Princeton University Press and into being, and to my immediate predecessor and longtime colleague, Walter Lippincott, who from the mid-1980s to his retirement in 2005 successfully guided the Einstein Papers project to its current highly celebrated status. Herb and Walter bestowed on me the great privilege of working with Professor Diana Buchwald and her colleagues in the Einstein Papers project at Caltech, as well as our colleagues at the Albert Einstein Archive here in Jerusalem, in continuing the work they had started. Together, in what can only be described as a remarkable multi-institutional collaboration, we are moving the Einstein Papers forward into a new era. So my remarks should be taken as a tribute to my predecessors, as well as to the small army of researchers, archivists, editors, technologists, and publishers spanning about a dozen time zones around the world who are building the Einstein legacy for the future. I'll begin my remarks with a bit of history, then include a few thoughts on what Einstein means to the press, and finish with some comments on how his legacy will shape our future. Albert Einstein is not only Princeton University Press's most illustrious author, he was our first best-selling author. Following his public lectures in Princeton in 1921, the press, itself then less than 20 years old at the time, published the text of those lectures titled The Meaning of Relativity in 1922. Publication followed the agitated exhortation of the press's then manager, Mr. Frank Tomlinson, urging Einstein to get his manuscript finished. Tomlinson wrote, "My dear Professor Einstein, on July 6, I wrote you inquiring whether we might expect to receive the manuscript of your lectures. I have had no reply to this letter. A number of people have been inquiring when the book will be ready, and we are considerably alarmed at the long delay in the receipt of your manuscript, which we were led to believe would be in our hands within a month after the lectures were delivered. The importance of the book will undoubtedly be seriously affected unless we are able to publish it within a reasonable time, and I strongly urge upon you the necessity of sending us the copy at your earliest convenience. I should appreciate also the favor of a reply from you stating when we may expect to receive it." This letter certainly marks something of a high point in the history of publishers' anxiety. But far from failing, The Meaning of Relativity was a hit. It would go on to numerous successive editions and remain very much available and remains very much available today, both as a print and an ebook, as well as in several translated editions, with a foreword by Brian Greene. But for all its glorious publishing history, The Meaning of Relativity can be thought of as a mere appetizer to the bounteous publishing banquet embodied in the collected papers of Albert Einstein. Authorized by the Einstein estate and the PUP Board of Trustees in 1970, and supported by a generous grant from the Harold W. McGraw, from the late Harold W. McGraw, chairman of the McGraw-Hill Book Company, and also at the time chairman of Princeton University Press, the Einstein Papers, as it evolves, will provide for the first complete and authoritative picture of a written legacy that ranges from Einstein's earliest work on the special and general theories of relativity, with the origins of quantum theory, to the expressions of his profound concerns with civil liberties, education, Zionism, pacifism, and disarmament. Its initial volume having appeared in 1987, the Einstein Papers mark two milestones upon the arrival of this very special centenary year of 2015. First, the imminent publication of Volume 14, The Berlin Years, taking us from 1923 to 1925. And second, the recent release of the digital Einstein edition of the digital edition of the Einstein Papers, a publishing event that has attracted extraordinary attention around the world, and which Diana Buchwald will be talking about in her comments. An old saying has it that good things come to those who wait, words that ring resoundingly true regarding the Einstein Papers. Having survived multiple editors in the long journey from the 1971 contract through the appearance of the first volume in 1987, the Einstein Papers project found its sweet spot in 2000, when the press was fortunate enough to engage Professor Buchwald as the 6th editor of the papers and move the project from Boston to Pasadena with the generous support of its new host institution, the California Institute of Technology. Since then, Diana, her editorial staff, and the international network of scholarly editors have produced successive volumes at the rate of one every 18 months. To give you an idea of just how impressive a pace this is, I'm told that the Galileo papers are still a work in progress nearly 4 centuries after his death. Along with the Einstein papers, the press has grown a lively satellite publishing program comprising derivative works from the collected papers, as well as important books on Einstein and his work. Derivative projects include our popular series of quotation volumes, as well as volumes on politics, on his love letters, and on Einstein's miraculous year of 1905. In the coming months, and marking this year's anniversary, we will be publishing 2 new books drawn from Einstein's writing, The Road to Relativity and the 100th anniversary of Relativity, the Special and General Theory, both volumes edited with contributions by Hanoch Gutfreund and Jürgen Wren. Adding to this publication picture, we have published books on Einstein by Fritz Stern, Dan Kennebec, Douglas Stone, Anthony Z., Werner Heisenberg, David Merman, and due for publication this spring, Jimena Canales, The Physicist and the Philosopher, Einstein, Bergson, and the Debate That Changed Our Understanding of Time. Much as the living legacy of the Einstein papers and its related publications means to Princeton University Press as an institution, it has certain meaning to me both as an editor and as a leader of the institution with which I've been affiliated now for over 2 decades. I arrived in at Princeton University Press in the summer of 1992, having spent the first half of my career in commercial publishing in New York as an editor of social science books, mainly those of economists and sociologists. My disposition towards the field of physics at the time, while full of awe, was perhaps best summed up by Woody Allen when he said, "I'm astounded by people who want to know the universe when it's hard enough to find your way around Chinatown." But I soon discovered that the Princeton publishing legacy of Albert Einstein carried with it a set of implications beyond his enormous intellectual bounty that would help to shape my activity as an editor and later as PUP's director, as well as that of my colleagues in the intervening years. And while some of this influence reveals itself materially in our work with the editors of the collected papers, much of it operates unconsciously and indirectly on the mind of the press. Preparing this presentation has given me the opportunity to explore this influence more explicitly. I see the Einstein legacy operating in 3 distinct ways on our culture as a publisher. First, it reinforces the centrality of publishing excellence, that is, of publishing core books by great authors. After some 22 years at PUP, if you played a word game with me and asked me to respond to the phrase Princeton University Press, I would revert to the same 2 phenomena that so impressed me when I arrived there in August of 1992. The courtyard in our building at 41 William Street in Princeton, and Albert Einstein. I'd cite the press's courtyard, fashioned in 1909 after the Plantin Mortius Princeton Printing Museum in Antwerp, because its architectural grandeur exemplifies the very special place scholarly books hold in Princeton. And I'd cite Einstein because his legacy stands as a giant-sized standard of excellence, a neon-like reminder that our job at Princeton is not merely to be good, but to be great, to the extent that we seek to achieve greatness every day and every year by publishing those books that help define the frontiers of modern scholarship. We are upholding a standard embodied in the legacy of Albert Einstein. Another implication of the PUP legacy of Albert Einstein is the commitment to science, both in its technical expression and in its more encompassing humanistic expression. PUP is distinctive among American university presses in publishing a full portfolio of books encompassing mathematics and the physical sciences, the life sciences, the social sciences, and the humanities. It is no coincidence that Albert Einstein, PUP's most celebrated author, casts his shadow across all of these fields, inspiring us as a science publisher and cajoling us to concentrate our editorial energies on building a list that focuses on exciting new ideas, a list that integrates intellectual interests and articulates a unified intellectual vision, one in which science and humanities complement and enrich each other. A former boss and mentor of mine at the Free Press, the late Erwin Glickus, liked to say that all great publishing is about something. Insofar as we at PUP can claim a list having a well-diversified but coherent publishing vision, it is about the spirit and substance reflected in the intellectual legacy of Albert Einstein and is inseparable from it. A third final implication is in the challenge and opportunity to be a great global publisher. As I have heard and watched Diana Buchwald present the outline of Einstein's life and work to various audiences, as she did so impressively last month at the winter meeting of the PUP Board of Trustees, what always strikes me as most remarkable is the global reach of Einstein, his work and his personality alike. In many ways, he was the first global citizen and remains unrivaled in that status to this day. Princeton University Press, as his publisher, is the beneficiary of this universal legacy, to the extent that we have positioned ourselves as a global publisher, built our lists in areas that appeal to readerships all over the world, expanded our author base, reviewer base, translations program, and sales effort to better encompass international interest. We do so under an imprint that scholars and publishers alike associate with the greatest of all global figures, Albert Einstein. And now, as my colleagues and I contemplate PUP's future as Einstein publisher, our first and most important commitment is to express our ongoing and enthusiastic support for the Einstein Papers project and to reaffirm our dedication to its completion. The concurrent release of the digital Einstein Papers and the convening of the present conference here in Jerusalem affords the press the opportunity to publicly renew our connections with our partners, with Professor Buchwald and her extended editorial team at Caltech, with Professor Ben Sasson and the entire Einstein enterprise at the Hebrew University, with the executive committee of the Einstein Papers project, drawing its members from Caltech, the Hebrew University, Princeton, and other great institutions, and with the authors and editors of our growing list of Einstein-related publications, both past and present. It's been 45 years since 1970 when the original agreement was authorized, bringing the Einstein paper into being. I can only imagine that the originators of this project would be proud of what our collective effort has produced, grateful to the principals for the job they have done in bringing the papers to their current status, and maybe above all, awed by the global exposure the papers have achieved in their print and now digital formats. As we enter a new era of Einstein publishing, work on volume 15 continues even as we prepare for our next executive committee meeting in Caltech in October, when we will discuss the next steps in extending Albert Einstein's legacy. For now, speaking on behalf of my colleagues in Princeton, I would simply like to thank all of you here, especially our partners, in marking the grand publishing tradition embodied in our joint enterprise, the collected papers of Albert Einstein. Thank you very much.